Hello, everyone, and welcome to your second lecture of week 4 of technical writing. This lecture comes from a grant I received back in 2018 when I was doing a little bit of entrepreneurial work at Villanova University. And when I graduated, I received a reward with this grant, and I took the time that gave me to study authenticity and writing. I ended up putting together about a 3-hour seminar that included CEOs. It included regular employees. It included rather new employees, people who were just starting their professional journey. So it was a really good group. And what I presented was a little bit of research on the power of writing, like what historical figures tended to use writing for, and how they established relationships with it, and alternatively, what their writing routines were. But the most important part that we wanted to get to in that seminar was this idea of how do we show up authentically in our writing. And so that was the main question in mind. In terms of our course, I'm going to put a similar exercise that they did into a discussion. That discussion is supposed to be, I guess, kind of fun and just time to relax and reflect a little bit. So it's not going to be a heavy technical writing exercise like some of the ones in the past have been, but it'll be a more personally reflective one. And while that one is not overwhelmingly technical, we're going to use it kind of as the bedrock for 2 of the assignments due this week. So once you look at the Canvas, you'll see how this goes down. But yeah, just keep in mind this wouldn't be in your standard technical writing course, and yeah, it's kind of unique to some work I did a couple years ago. In terms of our course, I retitled it to Understanding Your Audience, Understanding Yourself, because that's kind of, I think, a tougher thing than we think sometimes. And I have a quote here from Daniel Kahneman, his book Thinking Fast and Slow, page 52. After doing his behavioral economics studies, he came to this small conclusion that we know far less about ourselves than we feel we do. Now, I wanted to start here. I think it's a very powerful quote. I also think a lot of the behavioral economics studies and stuff that they did like over the last 20 years, I think a lot of it is getting revised right now, and new studies are finding different kinds of results. So I'm not sure how factually true this might still be, but I know there are a lot of times in my life where I feel like I know less about myself than I feel like I do. And so I think it's a powerful quote to kind of get started. So at this seminar that I put together using the grant money, like I said, I presented some information in terms of how famous writers or famous individuals, powerful individuals, used writing or had a writing routine, and we got into all of that. But the thing that we really focused on was this idea of authentic authorship. And so I asked my audience at the seminar throughout the hours we were together to write 3 life stories. The first life story was supposed to be their professional life story. Like if I wanted to learn about your career in 3 bullet points, what would those 3 stories be? And then I asked them to repeat the process with their personal life. And then I asked them to repeat the process with their private life, so something they might not tell really anybody. And we didn't necessarily have to share content or anything like that, but we did share how that reflection helped us. And I'll get to that in just a second. But the background, the only sort of advice I gave them up front was that there are 3 types of authenticity. I think the first type of authenticity is what we would call traditional. This is where if you grabbed a notebook and a pen and you wrote down a list of your traits and characteristics, you would just look at the page and say, hey, that's my authentic self. That's who I am. The other type is romantic authenticity. For this, you can think about like romantic painters and poets. always looking out at the landscape, or always, yeah, looking out into the world and trying to describe what kind of beautiful scenes they see. If you want a more shallow approach, you can think of like eat, pray, love. But romantic authenticity is this idea that your authentic self is actually somewhere in the world. And as a human, you kind of have to get up and go find it. Is it out in nature? Is it in doing some big travel expedition? Yeah, it's just like authenticity's out there somewhere, and you got to kind of live a life that finds yourself. The last type is existentialist. You might be familiar with this, but this is basically, yeah, the idea that every day you're going to live and change, and you're not always going to be the same self every single moment of every single day, but that's okay. You know, you're authentic. You're presenting your authentic self when you're just going through the rhythms of life, when you're going through the ups and downs. You know, yourself is always in there somewhere. And so, yeah, that was the background they were given. Then they did their writing exercises, and we got together and shared ideas and shared stories. And these were kind of the 4 bullet points we came up with for what an authentic author is. So we said first they develop stories and anticipate counter stories. So the authentic author can go down and journal their day or think back on a year or a decade and write, you know, what they think happened and how they developed during that decade. But they can also sit there and understand that maybe somebody else saw it in a different way. Maybe our friends saw us develop differently over that year, or our loved ones know that during that decade where we felt that we went through amazing growth, that maybe they saw us suffer in ways that we didn't see ourselves suffering. Authentic authors also observe and acknowledge the rhythms of their lives. So yeah, I talked about existentialism a little bit, or at least existential authenticity. And yeah, authentic authors are really good at taking a step back and realizing, you know, hey, some weeks I'm showing up as myself a little bit better than others, and sometimes of the year or some occurrences make me sad and down, and other ones make me excited and want to tackle life. But at the end of the day, the authentic author can step back and just observe and acknowledge that those things are happening. Authentic authors center choice and reflection in their decision making. And so, you know, sometimes when you think back on your life, maybe there are times where you feel like you didn't really do your due diligence with a decision, that maybe you just kind of wandered into a situation in a way where you really weren't thinking very intentionally. And so part of authentic authorship to us was, you know, looking back on these stories and acknowledging the rhythms, and then saying, you know, in the future, I'm going to be intentional. I'm not going to sleepwalk into any situation in life. I'm going to center making decisions and ending up really where I want to be. Lastly, we said authentic authors embody their stories, decisions, and reflections in all that they do. And so this was kind of our way of wrapping up the seminar and saying, you know, these are important elements in writing, in reflecting, in figuring out who we are when we're going to start to type up a report or type up an essay or type up an email. But we said, you know, as we walk away, we're going to embody these stories and embody these decisions and embody these reflections. Yeah, and understand kind of where we came from and where we're going. And so just to kind of generalize it out to some of the things we've been talking about in this course, you know, I wanted to ask you this question, like, how much can we really know about our receiver, right? When we're going to talk to somebody or present a report to them, how much do we really know about their mental state or their emotional state, or which part of life they are in? I think most times you'd say it's very hard to know that about a receiver of your message. And that ties directly to how much we really know about our message. When we sit down and write something, do we really know how well it's going to be received by different audiences? And you know, taking the extra step to sit back and think about what possibilities there are for how the message can be received. This applies to the channel as well. Like, you know, like I said, I publish these on YouTube. I don't really actually know all of my rights and all of that with publishing on YouTube. I know it's a great way to get these lectures to you, but maybe it is more important to think deeply about a channel. Environment, we did spatial orientations. So you've already been thinking about that. Like, how much do we know about it? How many different ways can we describe the environment, and what would that mean to different audiences? And then, yeah, context. If you think back to the rhetorical situation, the context was the part that was a little bit more abstract. Like, how much do we really know about the historical present? How much do we really know about our community or anything like that that can affect our message? And I think a big part of dealing with that uncertainty is returning to that idea of authenticity, and the different kinds of authenticity that maybe we agree with, and then the different kinds of authenticity that we've been embodying in our life so far or want to. And so, like I said, I'm just going to try to put together kind of a fun discussion post that'll give you some time to reflect on your higher education journey. And that'll lay the basis for two more technical writing focused assignments throughout the week. But thanks everyone, and we'll do one more lecture this week on evaluations.